My goal here is first and foremost to basically share my experiences from Techstars London. I think only one startup from Croatia ever went to Techstars. It's Code Anywhere, and they went to Boston Techstars cohort. So I got an amazing opportunity to be part of Techstars London last cohort as an associate. I'll tell you more about what that meant. But first, let me tell you a bit about myself. So basically, it was a long journey to get to Techstars. At first, I was a Microsoft student partner. Then after that, I worked with Zip and with Netocracia, both organizing the conferences here. When Gigs on a Plane came and some of the seed camps. And after that, I had, apart from the university things, I had a lot of extra time, so I founded my own startup, which is Time Prep. It's an iOS time management app for CFA candidates. And after that, from my second try, I got into Techstars to be an associate in the London office. So apart from these things, I'm a drummer and I'm a Bayern fan. So yeah, I'll tell you a little bit more about Techstars. At first, so Techstars is definitely one of the top accelerators in the world. It invests roughly around 118K dollars in seed funding to a startup for roughly 7 to 10% of their equity. Currently, it has 9 programs worldwide, which are run by Techstars. The newest one being opened in Berlin a couple of months back. So that's probably the closest one to us. And the other one in Europe, which is obviously London, with seven more in the States: Chicago, Boulder, Boston, New York. And apart from that, Techstars also started with making programs that are basically powered by Techstars. So what that means is that those are more vertical programs that are sponsored and basically powered or financed by the corporates. So, for example, there are fintech accelerators powered by Techstars, the Barclays ones, both in London and New York, the Nike ones, the Nike one, the Disney one, and there are a couple of more. The average funding from Techstars, the follow-up funding after the program, is roughly $2.4 million, and it works in a way that there are so 3 months. It's a 3-month program, 13 weeks, and startups basically get to those locations. And so first month is the Mentor Madness, which means I'll get to that later. But that means that during the first month, each startup is basically not approached, but mentored by roughly 80 mentors, which is quite a lot. The mentors are roughly from all over the ecosystem. On the second month, it's kind of the decision-making time when startups decide to implement some of the suggestions and advice they got from the mentors and basically pursue the path that they chose to follow. And the third month is basically preparing for the demo day. So as numerous other accelerators have, Techstars also has the demo day at the end of the program, which basically means that the startups pitch to investors and then they follow up with investment and so on and so on. Roughly, Techstars overall invested in more than 500 companies, and yeah, that's the kind of the first part. To be more specific, the last cohort in London had 10 companies out of I think roughly around 1,700 applicants. So the interview processes were lengthy as always, and so the funnel is from 1,700 to 80 to 40 to 20 and then to the final 10. So we had 300 demo day investors, probably more. It was a huge cinema, huge traditional kind of cinema, auditorium, where startups pitched. The average age of our cohort was 32, so I would say that's probably expected. But even like I would maybe as well be surprised because 32 is maybe a little bit older than I would say that I would expect. But there you go. We had also 10 associates. So let me just explain what that meant. So for each Techstars location, there are roughly 2, maybe 3 full-time employees which run the show, which run the location as it is. And for each program, they hire 10 associates to come to that location during the program, and on one side to help the startups that are invested, that have been invested in. They help them with numerous tasks. So, for example, on one side, the business associates were they did market research, they did marketing, they did mystery shopping, they did competitor analysis, stuff like that. Maybe budgeting, finances, copyright, stuff like that. And on the other side, the developer associates are there primarily to help them with the dev side, which in practice meant getting the APIs out, some machine learning, developing landing pages. So all that stuff that basically everyone can do and everyone can learn to do. But the thing is that Techstars really does want to accelerate the startups, and that's basically why the associates are there. And apart from all that, during the 3-month program, which brought, in my opinion, quite a lot of value to startups, are the 80 mentors and the 17 mini MBAs that we had, which the mini MBAs are kind of the lectures that people from outside, from various companies, Yelp, Facebook, Google, so all the kind of useful and basically successful ones come in and give their both feedback and give their kind of advice that is very practical for the startups. And the mentors, as I said, 80 of them, and I'll get to that later. So I'm going to go roughly. I'm going to tell you the lessons learned from my time there. The lessons learned from my time there. These are both personal and something that I learned, something that I've seen, and definitely the business ones as well that can be applied to, I guess, whoever. So the first one is definitely function over form. I think most of us here are from Croatia, and in my view, everything is basically, it has to be in some kind of a form. We have to kind of regulate stuff, and from my point of view there, nothing happened in that way. So, for example, I was I would say pretty shocked, because one of my tasks was at first to organize the Christmas party, and you would, in a Croatian environment, you would say Christmas party, okay, accelerator or company, whoever. It needs to be fancy, it needs to be chic, it needs to be kind of very kind of high standard. We didn't do it that way. So this is kind of normal, okay, fine, just drinks. But we did it I didn't say something, never mind, I'll say it later. We did it in basically kind of a factory that was stitched in a couple of days from one of the startups that actually produces knitwear. So this is kind of I don't know how good is it to see, but there are kind of materials all around and equipment, and basically that room was being used to build the box in which a big knitting machine is being placed. So it was kind of very raw, but due to the budget, due to the time frame, due to the availability. We just said, doesn't matter, we'll just go for it. So that was definitely kind of don't worry about it, don't care. We'll just done is probably better than perfect. From the other side, the thing I saw, which is definitely I would say different than here, is probably clothes people wear, especially in the accelerator. Like, no one cares if you're in a suit, no one cares if you're in a shirt. I came to the accelerator in a shirt and then was basically laughed at because, like, are you going to an interview? And I was like, no, of course not. But like, everyone's in a hoodie, everyone's like chilled. And the third thing is the thing about regulation that I mentioned earlier. So during the same Christmas party, the same startup, so basically the startup that I spoke about is called Nitin, and what they do is they develop highly customizable and personalized knitwear. So they cracked the knitting machines which use 1970s technology and make it very useful and simple for a common person to basically, through a web interface, to design its own knitwear and basically print it or knit it out. So beside this room, they had their own shop, and it was like 10 p.m., 11 p.m., and one of the colleagues wanted a discount for his scarf because he's going over Christmas to his girlfriend. And what happened is that even though it was 11 p.m., the founder of the shop, the founder of the startup, basically came out and billed him and have given him the scarf, and the transaction happened. And I was like, whoa, what happened? Like, it's 11 p.m., how is this possible? And no one cares. Like, here, it would be, apart from the fiscalization, it would be, oh, it's not the time, it's not the closing hours have gone and stuff like that. And it was really different. Well, anyway, that's definitely lesson number one for me. Yeah, the lesson number two is treat every situation as a new learning opportunity. I guess there are startups where there are developers that there are only developers that don't want or that don't need or that are not keen on business stuff and marketing stuff, or accounting stuff or running a business kind of stuff. They just want to be hands down and just develop, and that can work for a while, but more or less it's gonna happen that they will need to do stuff that they don't like to do, and they need to stay positive. They need to approach that situation as a thing that is not their favorite thing in the world, but as something that needs to be done and that can bring them a new learning kind of opportunity. The third one is put yourself in another person's shoes. I guess that hiring is definitely one of the toughest jobs for a founder of any startup. I think that being able to click with the person that you're hiring is extremely difficult and extremely not every time probable. And it's very, as I think Laszlo said it before, you need to listen to another person. You need to hear his interests and hear his backstory in order to be able to hire him and in order to understand him. It's not just CVs. It's not just everything's not black and white in that view. So definitely try to understand the other person, and in order basically to hire him and to get kind of to a win-win situation. The fourth one is make a decision. I mentioned the first month, the Mentor Madness month, which basically means that over the course of 2 weeks, each startup is talking so is mentored by one of the 80 mentors. So he gets an opportunity to speak to 80 different people that have various background from all parts of the ecosystem. So from investors, from angels, from corporate people, from media, from ex-founders, from Techstars alumni, stuff like that. And the first month is basically there to ensure that all kind of suggestions and all the advice that a company can hear and can have a pool from to decide where do they need to go. And what happens after that first month, the company really needs to decide where they are going. In example, the startup that I mentioned before, Nitin, they could have been a number of stuff. They could have been a crowdsourcing kind of design platform and for everyone. They could have opened shops all around the world, stuff like that. So they need to decide what they want to do and where to take their company. And that's hard, I guess. So it's really important to just decide and to pursue that road and test the hypotheses that are before them. The fifth one is definitely the proper deadlines bring the best in you. Even though there are definitely people who are very punctual, and everything they do it in early bird kind of style. I've seen, and that's how I kind of roll as well. It's always kind of when there's a proper deadline, when you need to hand in a paper by that and that date, when you have a demo day and that date, and you mustn't screw up, then probably you will do it. If there's no proper deadline, if there's kind of, oh, I'm going to just do it, I have infinite time, then you just wander around, then you waste time, then you don't actually do it, and that's not a good thing. We had an example of a founder of a company that spent the last month, so the third month in the US fundraising, and basically came to London 3 days before the demo day. And what happened? He didn't have his pitch. He didn't have anything, but we stitched him, and eventually, he didn't sleep for 48 hours, 70 hours, something like that, which is extreme, yeah, fine. But he still was able to do it and to properly do the pitch for the demo day, which is cool. And as I said, just the pitch evolution through that last month is just unbelievable. So you go to the last month, you have just decided what you're going to do, you are building it, you're developing it, and then you need to present in a way which is definitely not, as I'm doing right now, improvisation, but every word in that pitch is on the right spot. Every word is highly and accurately placed. So yeah, it's just the evolution has been just unbelievable. The next one is keep it brief, short, and simple. That's definitely one of the toughest things I had, the toughest things I had to experience. I'm definitely not a person that can just write 5 sentences in an email and just explain like, hi, I'm this and this, I need this and this, how can you help, thank you, bye. I need to go to lengths and to depth. And that's just not how the world, especially not the Western world works. I definitely understand, and probably that's the reason why I did it at first as well, because we kind of have the mentality of, okay, we'll sit down for an hour for a coffee, take time, I will tell you my story, you will tell me my story, then we'll just chat and blah, blah, and then we might reach a conclusion. But in a fast-paced world, keeping it brief, short, and simple is definitely will definitely make a difference between getting hired or not, getting an investment or not, getting a job or not. So it's definitely, I think, something that's definitely worth pursuing. especially if you're talking to an outsider, to a non-Croatian who doesn't have the time to read through a lengthy email. The seventh kind of lesson is the one that's, I think, most crucial for me. And it's kind of a stereotype, it's kind of a myth. Theme is everything, and I'm not talking here about kind of the investment kind of variable, whether or not theme is at the most important thing if you're looking for an investment, or the least important thing. I'm just talking about the thing that proved itself during the last kind of month, when the pitches and the whole rehearsal got very intense, how teams got together. And I mean, the whole kind of Techstars feel is that it's a 13-week program, which has its kind of cohort feeling, kind of boot camp, kind of military feeling. So you get together, you all have your common goal. You need to get to the demo day, get to the last kind of step, pitch, and definitely kind of seek further investments. And the cohesion and the synergy between the whole cohort was unbelievable. So we saw the intra team synergy when developers would listen to their founders, to their CEOs. They would help them. They would rehearse. You had the intra team synergy, which meant that people from another team came to the founders and listened and rehearsed and suggested the stuff to change. And it was just definitely unbelievable. And from my point of view, definitely the third kind of step that was pretty awesome. So there were 10 associates, and it was a very international team. So we had an Irishman, Spanish, an American, a Chinese. It was all over the world, and my thoughts before were that it would be, sooner or later, it would be pretty competitive, because we would fight each other in a way, but that never happened, and it's pretty unbelievable that it didn't. And we all got along pretty, like, it was pretty awesome. And that whole kind of synergy translated and transferred to the demo day, which was pretty intense, as any event is, and stressed. So yeah, it's the thing that, yeah, I think the team is probably everything. So those are kind of my 7 lessons learned. You can definitely ask me whatever you want. I'm, well, partly definitely humbled to be able to experience such an experience in London. And the deadline for Techstars London is 30th of April. And if you want to be also some kind of an associate, let me know. Yeah, you can ask me, and that's it, I guess.
Right. Thanks a lot.